All right. Thank you again for joining us, everybody. My name is Shannon Zizula. I'm the State Resource Conservationist here in Indiana. And joining me today is Chris Morse, our INNRCS GIS specialist, to showcase an outstanding tool that he has put together to help you manage your workload related to CRP as well as compliance status reviews. So I'm just going to get into a little bit of background information on the data that you all have access to and is your workload, and then how Chris was able to take that and put that into a useful GIS tool so that you can maximize your efficiencies, help manage your partners helping you with work, or other employees that can help you out with that. So let's just dive right in here. I just want to highlight a couple of the data sets that you have and what they mean. First and foremost is the CRP workload. You should hopefully have this. We did send this out to the area staff, ACs and RMSs, as well as your planning team leaders. So they hopefully have given this to you so that you can see what you're faced with and start working with your area leadership and PTLs and other support folks at the tech teams and others to coordinate requesting partner support, as well as other workload management. So I'm going to just kind of go through this very briefly. That's relatively self-explanatory, but I'll just walk you through it. First and foremost, this is the complete data set of your known CRP workload for 2022. And it includes the maintenance status reviews, the establishment status reviews, and we had a joint meeting. Well, I can't remember the date now. The dates are skipping me with FSA and our partners going over the guidance that we sent out on that. So hopefully, if you haven't seen that guidance, please read it. And if you need to take that recording, it's on your Outlook calendar, and I can get that to you. Send me an email if you can't find it. So again, maintenance status reviews, establishment status reviews, practice certifications. Again, each of these are their own separate tabs. So you can manage the expertise and other support folks to help you manage this as best you can. The re-enrollments for both continuous and general sign-ups. So these again are possible site visits. So anyways, on each of these lists, they are sorted by physical county. So again, where that CRP practice is physically located is how this is currently sorted. But we also have the administrative county. Some other information, contract farm, track number, CLU number. And just remember, all CRP practices are digitized by FSA as their own CLU, okay? So again, I can't remember when that happened, but when we say CLU, that's the same, that actual CRP practice will be digitized accordingly. Contract acreage, again, self-explanatory. Re-enrolled acres, again, this is where you can, if this practice was re-enrolled at the last sign up, that's what that means. It'll be a zero if it was cropland 10 years ago, or in this case, 8 years ago. If it was cropland, it would have a zero there. If it was actual CRP covered, just re-enrolled 8 years ago, it'll have an acreage right there, and it should match the contract acreage. The practice acreage. And then again, these begin years, end years. This is what we use to decide if it's a maintenance status review, establishment status review, et cetera. And again, we spelled out if it was re-enrolled prior. The type of expertise. This expertise is tied to the CRP practice. And again, this will help you manage your partners and asking them to help you on which practices you need help with. Again, agronomy would be more in line with our soil and water conservation district contribution agreements. Wildlife would be more in line with our DNR, Division of Fish and Wildlife, or Pheasants Forever partners to help us out, and/or requesting assistance from a tech team or another employee within your tech team area or area. Okay, and then this is a pretty important one here that we added. Is it in the GIS tool? And Chris will go into maybe a little more detail on this. But when we originally got the list of practices from FSA, things had changed from that time to now. So again, farms change hands, they get reconstituted, track numbers change, so on and so forth. If he was not able to match up the current CLU with these data, it's not on your GIS tool. And so this is a pretty important one to know, that if there's a no here, that means that practice does not appear on the GIS tool, and you'll have to manage that separately and make sure you don't lose sight of it from the geographic perspective. But it is on your spreadsheet here. So real briefly, any questions on this data set? You can either put questions in the chat or raise your hand or take yourself off mute and ask a question. I'll pause here for effect and time. Okay, good deal. Good. If you have any, again, you all know how to run teams. Feel free to ask a question out loud or raise your hand or enter chat. Do you have a question? I'll mute you if you don't have a question. I'll try to at least. All right, cool. Let's move on to the other set of data that you have access to, and we will cover this real briefly. This is hopefully nothing new to you unless you're new to the agency or new to compliance status reviews. This is the national database of the randomly selected tracks as well as the variance tracks from last year. That's what's populated in here right now, and this is what Chris has been able to geographically represent in his GIS tool. Again, you have access to this through the Indiana Bulletin that we sent out about completing compliance status reviews. And this is the database that you enter your results in as you make your decisions. Okay. Any comments or questions on this set of data? Okay, well, seeing none, I will turn it over to Chris, and he will give you the lowdown on the GIS tools and how to access them and how to use them and all the other great stuff that he was able to put together for you. Take it away, Chris.
Thanks, Shannon. Okay, I'm going to share screen now, and let's go with this screen for starters. All right. Let me bring back this view. Is anyone seeing anything?
Yes. Well, I've seen the GIS states 10.8.1.
Yep. That's good. Okay. Just adjusting my windows over here. All right. So I've put the links in the chat for the 3 apps now. We had 2 apps. We had one for CRP. It was an app. It really does come from a map that's going to be like these other 2 maps that we're going to look at today, which I could share that as well. But it's kind of redundant because we're going to get to that 3rd combined map down there. The second one was for the compliance status reviews. It's just a map just to edit with. And the 3rd one has been combined. We've taken all the data, put it together into one app. All the layers are in there. We're going to look at that and show you how to use it, how to get at that. And you can just switch back and forth between the layers that you're working with in the same map. So that's what I'm really going to focus on today. But to start with, we're going to talk about how to access this stuff. So I'm going to type this other link in here. If you can sign in at this site, and if that'll create an account for you. And I should probably rename this, edit this just a little bit. We'll call this the GIS States site. And it's really another portal. So there's another link in chat now. And if you can sign in there, that's great. That'll create your account. There's almost 100 staff who have created an account in here already for various uses. And you belong to either the Indiana INNRCS user group or the Indiana INNRCS partner group, depending on what agency you're with. In this case, you're going to see these apps the same way in everything I show you today, except for mobile, because we don't have any shared mobile devices yet. So only internal INNRCS staff will have the mobile option when we get to that at the end. So if you try the first 3 links and you get access denied, what you have to do is you have to click this GIS States sites or site link to create your account, and then email me that you have logged in and that you need permission to access Indiana INNRCS content. If your signature doesn't include your position and your agency, please let me know. you know, what your job title in your agency is, so I can kind of track permissions and manage them here and get you in the right groups. So once you're in and I message you back, those top 3 links will work. You can also explore content in here by going to the Groups tab, and you'll see the groups that you belong to. And there's one called Indiana INNRCS that I've already clicked on this other tab. And I've filtered this one on the left side by maps. And you're going to see a lot of content in here. But some of the things that we're looking at are in this list. So the CRP workload web map is in here. The field or the compliance status reviews map is in here at the top. It looks a little different. And the combined one, which is going to be called Indiana Field Review Tracking, is in here. So this is just a way you can browse the things that you can see on the portal and get at these a different way to open them if you don't have the direct links. I would really recommend saving the direct links, especially for the combined editor map in your bookmarks, and just opening that up. You'll be prompted to eAuth when you open it up, and then you'll be in once it lets you through. If you see anything in here called mobile, you can technically work with that in the web as well. It's the same content. You just really won't be able to change your base map, so don't do that. We'll talk about base maps in a minute here. But for the full apps on the website, you can change your base maps. Is this the one? I think it is. Yeah, okay. So I've clicked the 3rd link here on this tab to open the combined map. And this has a bunch of layers in it. So let's talk about this map here. It's kind of at statewide view. I'm on a smaller monitor now, so it gets cut off when I'm kind of zoomed at the default level. But if you have a larger monitor, the statewide view should fit on your screen. And it's pretty much going to look like this for you, minus a couple options at the top. You probably won't be able to save your own copy, or you may not be able to create new maps. I think you might be able to actually, but you don't want to mess with any of that. On the left side, it's kind of like ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro. You've got a list of layers that you can turn on and off. This top layer is the Indiana counties right now. It's black text when I'm not hovering over it. And that means you can see it. We are at a zoom level that you can see that layer. So it has scale dependent zooming, just like an ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro. So if I turn on a layer that's grayed out, like the CRP tracks here, nothing comes on because it's grayed out. That means we are at a scale currently that it's not visible to see. But if I zoom in, most likely it's usually a zoom in, they come on. So that's just what the table of contents means when you're seeing grayed out layers versus not grayed out layers. And the CRP tracks are here as the first layer, and the CRP practice reviews is the second layer. So we outlined the tracks around the practices. As I zoom in some more, I can turn on the practices. So those things are in here. We'll click on these things in a minute, but I just wanted to show you a few more features here. That's how zooming works. It's mouse wheel. You can also use the plus minus button, and that's how scale dependencies work. If you click the home button, it takes you back to the default extent. All right, so let's get back in here. If you need to see the legend, that's along the top here. This is information about the map. Most of the time we're working on this content page. And if you get away from it at all for some reason, like, hey, I can't turn my layers on and off because I'm on the legend tab, just switch back to the content tab and you can turn your layers on and off again. All right, so the other thing I really want to show is base maps here. You can change, as long as you're in the non-mobile versions of these maps, you can change your base map to any of these styles. And the most common one you're going to probably want is imagery or imagery hybrid, or the one we're looking at, which is navigation or streets. Either of those is fine. These other ones are mostly cartographic. You generally don't need. So if I change to imagery, it's going to change us to imagery. All right. So let's click on some things. With CRP, we are tracking things at the practice level. So the tracked outlines are just kind of to give you an overview of where things are. And if I click on something that is on top of one or the other here, I've selected the tract. And this pop-up pops up, and you can see it says it has one of two features. And the whole tract is outlined in blue right now instead of the practice. But there's a tiny little arrow here that looks like a play button. And if I click that arrow, it takes me to the other feature that was beneath my cursor when I clicked it, which is the, in this case, practice information, practice polygon from the CLU for CP38, 2 here. And you're going to see that practice code and the practice acres, whether the site visit was complete or not. And this should really just say, I think, documentation complete. Is that right, Shannon? Because it may not always be. Yeah, and I can probably tweak that real quick before we go, or before we start using it more today. And then the reviewing agency is blank by default because we haven't done anything with it yet. You can see the workload type for maintenance, and there's other categories in here, establishment, and you can kind of see what, you can decode what we're doing with this one. It's reflecting information from the spreadsheet. Do you have anything to kind of add there, Shannon, about looking at particularly workload type and expertise beyond what we've already done?
Again, this is a maintenance status review need. And again, because it's a CP38E, we've given you the expertise, tied it to wildlife. So again, if you need to ask, I can't remember what county we're in, if the DC needs to ask, or if Dave needs to ask either the Farm Bill biologist or the DNR biologist for help on that one, he can do so, and then we can get those folks on task to reviewing that, or coordinating with the tech team, or he does it himself. However, he manages his workload and the expertise available to him.
All
but
right.
Again, this record is also in the spreadsheet, and so again, this just gives a geographic representation of where this practice is in relation to all the other work that's going on in Montgomery County for CRP and compliance status reviews. We know there's more than that.
Again, if you see this back arrow now up here, it'll take you to the other features. So you just have back and forth arrows at the top of the bar for however many features you happen to select. If you don't want to worry about that, you can just turn off the tracks layer before you click on a practice. And, it just comes up then without that back and forth arrow. So then editing, I'm going to switch to the legend here just to show you that we're going for a couple categories here. This first column is whether the site visit was completed. And the second column after the comma is for whether the documentation was completed, which right now is called LTB13, but I can fix that real quick. So these are the combinations. Site visit no, documentation no is red. Site visit yes, documentation no is purple. And both of them yes is green. And the other combination that we don't show here, which is no yes or some other weird thing happened, is going to be an error, and it's going to be yellow. All right, so that's just the color code on the legends here. So how do I edit this? Well, there's a convenient little edit button down here at the bottom of the pop-up, and it brings up all the information. And it's kind of tough to see with the contrast here, but a lot of this is grayed out, meaning you can't edit it. But these three things in the middle are not grayed out. They're more black instead of gray if you look really closely when you get it up on your screen. And they're just simple pick lists here where you can change it to, yes, the site visit is complete. And you can see it's already changed to purple in the background. And that means we have a yes, no right now. As I look at, if I click this back arrow here to go to my legend, I'd be able to see that. Also, I can undo it if I need to. There's no save or anything like that. It's just done. Or I could just change it back. Pretty straightforward. If I change them both to yes, they become green. And then the reviewing agency, I'll throw that in there as INNRCS field office in this case, just for an example. But the CDT is in here, Pheasants Forever, Soil and Water, IDNR, ISDA, or other. All those choices are in here for who did the work. Do you want to add anything about that box, Shannon, and what to do there?
Yeah, just a little more information about the data. What you have are only the INNRCS practices that we are responsible for in CRP. So I'll just little interaction. Tell me what practices in CRP are not on that data set that we gave you. So, it just randomly put it in the chat, everybody.
Screen is locked and not flowing. Okay, gotcha, Chris. Thanks.
Forestry, perfect. Yes. So the data set that you have, as well as this GIS tool, does not include the CRP forestry practices. Okay. So if again, this GIS tool, I'd have to remind us, is not a requirement, but it is strongly recommended to use it to help you manage your workload and coordinate with all your partners and other support staff to get the workload done. So the reviewing agency on Chris's dropdown here, it says DNR. That is the DNR Division of Fish and Wildlife. Okay, so again, because CRP Forestry is covered by the Division of Forestry, they are not on here. So just make sure we keep that clear. And again, this is a tool for your use to help you manage your workload. We are not at the state office level requiring you to report back that all the workload is complete. We're not requiring you to update this data set that Chris has, nor the spreadsheet. But we are under policy required to do so. So again, how you manage that workload, whether you want to track it here in this GIS tool, so you can get a visual representation of where work has been completed and where it hasn't, that's outstanding. If you want to track it on the spreadsheet and coordinate with FSA and your partners, that's outstanding. However it works best for you and maximizes your time and efficiency is why we gave you these tools, and you can use them at your disposal. One more item on the spreadsheet. We gave you the statewide list. If you need help filtering, sorting, whatever, please let me know. I'm happy to customize it for your county so that you only see what is at your workload disposal. I'm happy to do so. So back to you, Chris.
Yeah, so there's a question from Chris. If it's a forestry practice, do we not track it in this?
Correct. DNR Division of Forestry and FSA have a separate list. They will track that and completion separately. Again, if your local FSA office asks you to help with a forestry practice, kindly remind them you need to work with the district forester. That is their responsibility, not yours. Now, again, we're friends and partners. We can help, but that is their responsibility. You all have your own responsibilities to track and make sure it gets done. Good question, Chris. Thank you. Back to you, Chris Morse.
Okay, I'm going to just open another thing really quick and let that load in the background. The main drawback here is that can we export data? Yeah, I'll come to that, Clevie. We're going to show you some increased efficiencies as I delve deeper into this, because there's going to be some options to use this. So we'll circle back to that, Clevie. The main drawback here is that you cannot select multiple practices, which is something else I will address later. So after you've edited something, it will save automatically. There's no save button at the bottom. You can close this window if you want to, or you can just click off of it in a blank area, and it will make that window go away. But on the left, you can see that we have this add features thing now instead of the legend, but there's this tiny little back arrow that will take me back to what I was doing, or this details button will take me back. And again, I'm on the legend page right now, but I can switch back to the content page. It's all kind of interactive. You'll get used to it. It's all good. I don't have anything else here on CRP really in the apps. Remember, save is automatic. I'll go into the CSRs next, but do we have questions any more about the CRP before I switch to the CSRs? I'll just start, I guess. All right, not hearing anything. I'm just going to flow into the next one. So the practices in CRP, remember, are being tracked by this practice layer. The tracks layer is just for reference. But then we have another tracks layer for CSRs. Let me go find one. And these tracks are outlined in red. I should probably change the labels to be red too. That's an easy change. And it's just a tracked outline. And again, if I click on one of these, we're going to get the pop-up of information. we're going to get the track number that was listed on the CSR, on the compliance status review report that was spit out at the time it was generated, and the category of what kind of review it falls into. Then we're going to see the site visit completed and whether it, this QA stuff's really for the state office. You don't need to worry about it. You're really just focused on the site visit completed on this one, yes or no. Down at the bottom is some more information that was linked from the report that was pulled. Although the track number down here is actually potentially in only a few cases different, and it's a more up-to-date track number. So this is the original track number at the time of pulling the data, and this is a more current track number, I'll say, because it's always changing, as we know. So yeah, same thing with this one. You can click edit. The 3 boxes in the middle here can be edited. The main one you're looking at, of course, is whether the site visit was completed, yes or no. This one turns green. So the color coding here on both of these is so that when you zoom out, you can see the areas that are not done yet. And it's just a kind of a visual thing. Change this one back to no. And let me see if I can find another one. There's some more. Where am I? Actually, I want to look up in this part of the state because I know there's an example I've been looking at. Yeah, let's go over here. All right, I'm going to let the screen catch up now that I've zoomed somewhere else. So with this layer, this is really the only work layer you need, but for the compliance status reviews, we loaded up some more information. So there's a fields layer in here, so you can see the field boundaries from the CLU at the time that we pulled the data. Again, ever changing, but this is a snapshot from recent history. And also there's this HEL status, which was what is the HEL status of the field at the time. So the color codes on this one is this pink is HEL, purple is UHEL, and green, if we have any, let's see if there's a nearby tract, is going to be NHEL. I zoomed out too far. Yeah, here's one. This is a better one. So we can see all 3 colors here. So we got HEL, UHEL, and NHEL on the fields. Also available for reference on this one is the points layer from FSA's wetland points, and the red, green, and yellow dots are all in here. And if I click one of them, it tells you limited restrictions, and I thought the label was in here, but I'm gonna have to look at that. I'll double check the labeling expression and see if we can get them both in there. And the map that we uploaded, it was, but it looks like it's just putting the category name in there right now. So it's just reference information. Also in here is the current Servo layer, if you need to see it, and that's only on these compliance status reviews. Unfortunately, it's not on the CRP stuff, but it's within the tract extent, and then the frozen layer if you want to see it for reference as well. And again, this one's color-coded green for NHEL, yellow for PHEL, and pink for HEL. Obviously, the 3 counties that aren't done yet, Pulaski, Perry, and Owen, don't have this frozen data showing up. So that's just some reference information. But it's the same kind of process. Just click the tract, click edit, and site visit complete, change to yes. Really straightforward. Any questions on that as I shift towards more advanced uses? So the CRP app, go ahead, Shannon. I think I heard, or someone.
I was just going to say, you know, as Chris had been zooming and out zooming, you could see where, you know, the compliance status reviews are kind of scattered across the county. The CRP is pretty, you know, they're everywhere. That again, hopefully you can kind of start seeing now how you can strategize that. You know, hey, if the designated conservationist is going in the northwest part of the county to look at a compliance status review field check, you know, hey, on the way, can you hit these CRP reviews and just again maximize your day, maximize your travel. so long as the same individual has the expertise to do both tasks. You can better coordinate that way. Likewise, if a county has a lot of work on the southern part of the county, and the other county has a lot of work in the northern, maybe you can coordinate amongst your counterparts and district conservationists and others to say, hey, I'll take these while I'm up there, and I'll get you the information that you need. So again, now hopefully we can see how things lie geographically here and strategize on ways to maximize our efficiencies and our expertise, and knock these things out as more efficiently than we could have in the past without this geographic representation.
Randy's asking, are the 85 and 86 imagery layers available in this tool? They aren't. I mean, we don't have any actual imagery layers. If you're talking about the points layer to link to them, Randy, to open the slides that go in those areas, I could see about adding that points layer.
Real briefly, Chris, those 85 and 86 imageries, they are not geo-referenced, correct?
Right. If we're talking about the points layer, it's just going to open the file from the folder. As I think about that, I think that's been kind of broken actually. Because I think it's broken in Chrome. It used to work in Internet Explorer, but we want to be in Chrome and Edge for this. So at the moment, unfortunately, that's going to be a limitation. We can do that in Pro though in a minute, and I'm going to show you how to do all of this in another way. Yep. So there is a way to do that, Randy. It's not in here at the moment. I'll consider that going forward. But right now, the way to do that might be in Desktop GIS, which is what I'm about to shift into actually. And it's going to answer a couple of the earlier questions too. So how about I bring that up? And I'm going to bring it up in Pro. And I know that's going to probably alarm people, but ArcGIS Pro is replacing ArcMap, and we can pretty much start using it. And it looks intimidating, but there are a lot of training resources available, and we are going to be having regular webinars starting very soon, dates very soon to be announced, where I spend about an hour a week for 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how much content we need to get through, showing you how to use Pro. But that shouldn't really stop you from getting in here. And it's pretty simple actually with this MX or this project that's already been set up. So a couple things to get to this point. How do you get this project? Let's go first back to my web browser and let's go look at the SharePoint for GIS setup. So there's a setup guide for GIS that includes steps on how to install ArcGIS Pro. It's in this computer setup guide, which I'm going to flip over to. And there's a section down here called Install and Configure ArcGIS Pro. It's in Software Center. It can live on your machine at the same time as ArcMap. And on the second page, and I'll blow this up a little here for us. These are the versions. I just updated the versions this morning and posted this PDF this morning. So we're on Pro 2.9, and then we patch it to 2.9.1 right now. And there are steps, like I said, later in the guide for after you install it. The first page of section 3.1 tells you how to install it. And then it tells you how to license it. And then it tells you, I'm going to get past the license stuff, some options to optimize it. Pretty much this whole section you can do. There's a lot of screenshots in here. It looks like a lot of pages, but you can see there's, basically 2 steps per page that kind of fill up the page with screenshots. All of this can be set up, and that's it for that guide. The other guide I want to call your attention to is managing portals in Pro. And that's another PDF that is going to tell you how to connect to these websites like the GIS States website in Pro. And that is essentially, you're going to start Pro and click the little settings gear, then click the little portals button, and you're going to just type in or copy paste in these 2 web addresses. You're going to put it in this box and click OK, and then you're going to put the second one in this box and click OK. And those will get added into Pro, and I'll go show you these in a second. This is just for use going forward. This is the best way to set up Pro, but really giving you this project, all you're going to have to do is open it and sign in. It'll prompt you to sign in when you open it. So how do you get this project? Yesterday, I deployed to all servers this project. It is in the F drive, and it is in INNRCS GIS tools, and it's in this Indiana templates folder. But you don't need to know that. You can just follow our standard procedures to update GIS stuff. You can go to F data scripts instead, and you can run this update batch files, double click that to make sure that you've got the latest tools for downloading. That one should go by pretty quickly. And then if you double click GIS updates, it's only going to download new stuff for you if you're already set up. So it'll update your CLUs and it'll download this project. All right. So after you run those two things, and that's just the normal setup guide and the normal update procedures that we do for a lot of things, it's going to install this template in C, GIS tools. I've got a lot more in here. Do not be frightened by everything you see here. You're going to have a lot less in this folder. Indiana templates is where I'm going to stick a lot of Pro stuff for now. And I'm going to call this one Indiana Field Reviews 2022. And there's this blue icon here. Once you have Pro installed, that's the actual project. When I double click it, it brings up the GIS system and you're seeing the same map after you sign in. It's going to prompt you to sign in. All the same layers are in here on the left side with the addition of the counties layer. The Basemap button is in here to change base maps, all the same. Just to show you that portals configuration, if you open this project and you go to the project tab, there's this portals button where I've added, the two portals I showed you earlier in the Manage Portals guide, but I have other ones for development and testing as well. But the GIS States one is in here, the same one you guys would use, and the generic one is in here. That's the one that we're going to pull the CLUs from in our future tools in Pro when we convert everything to Pro. And up in the top right, it shows you whether you're signed in or not. Right now, it's got my eAuth ID here. That means I'm signed in. If I click this little down arrow, I can sign out or I can switch to a different portal. I'm on the GIS States portal right now. That's where we want to be. That's where all this stuff is. And I'm going to zoom in somewhere again. And again, it's mouse wheel zooming. And let's look at the CSR tracks. Let's look at the CRP ones so we go in the same order. So here are the CRP tracks and practices again. I'm just going to zoom in somewhere randomly again. And just to demonstrate, I can change the base map to imagery, and it's going to change us to imagery, just like the web app. So there's big buttons up here at the top. Base map is a button of interest. Table of contents looks really similar to what you're used to in ArcMap with layers to turn on and off, group layers. So CRP, these two layers are in the CRP group. And then the CSR layers and their reference layers are all in the CSR group. Same stuff. But the nice thing in here kind of is I can select multiple features at once. So I've got the CRP practice layers on. I should show you how to bring up the pop-up just like everything else before I show you selection. So this explore button is kind of how you move around. And it works a lot more like a web map in here than it does in the ArcMap days with the zoom magnifying glasses and all that. Some of that is still here, but it's really just like a web page with scroll wheel and click to pan. Like I don't have to pick a different tool. I can just click and drag to pan. And if I use this explore button, that's actually also your identify button. So if I click a feature here, it's going to bring up a pop-up window. For you all, it'll probably be floating by default. Mine is docked for other things I've been doing. But all the information is in here again, all the same stuff. And actually, you're going to see quite a bit more of a lot of hidden data that we really don't need to see. But everything, all the same information is still in here. Let me get this back out of the way. All right. So the select tool is here where I can select these features. And unlike in the web map, here I can select several of them at once, like everything on a tract, hypothetically. And I can go right to the Edit tab up at the top of the map here. It just says the word Edit. And my ribbon changes now. Now I've got a bunch of editing stuff across the top. So it's a little bit more like Microsoft Word. And just like in ArcMap, there's this little weird icon for attributes that if I click it, it looks like a little table with 2 columns. It's going to open an attributing window. And I can click the top one here. So I have the whole group selected. And then I can see my editable fields are here again, and they're highlighted. And I can change site visit complete to yes. So click the inner arrow, not the outer one. And I can click documentation to yes. And if I click off of them, they all change. So there's a GIS way to be more efficient if you want to crank through more of these at once. And I didn't have to start editing, you noticed. I don't have to stop editing. I am editing the data on the server right now. Let's see what, let me just see what county I'm in here. I think I went into Montgomery again. Okay, yeah. Also on the edit tab, I do still have to click this save button. It's a save button. It's much bigger now with a pencil on it. That's save edits. I'm going to say, yeah, save those edits. Those are done. Let's go take a look at the map. I'm going to zoom out and head back to Montgomery County. And let me change to the imagery so I have a better time seeing where these were at. There they are. So they're linked. You're working with the live data in GIS. It's the same data. The CRP link that we sent out earlier, if you just want to work in that CRP app and edit data there, it's linked to these same 2 other apps, to the ArcGIS Pro project and to the web app, the joint web app. They're all linked together. You're editing the same data. All of you are. Right? That's a key feature of all of this. All right, so let's go back to Pro. Let's change these back. I think you can change them both at the same time with this outer selector. Click off of them. Save my edits again. Click yes. Then I'll just kind of pan around in here and they start to update. Just takes it a few seconds for everything to sync up. And it's updated. So ArcGIS Pro, that's one way to do this as well. If you're interested in that, definitely reach out to me if you want to do this. Clevey, you are asking, can we export data? I believe the answer is yes. Let's try it. So I selected data, I right click the layer, I go to export features, data export features similar to ArcMap, and I can pick an output folder. Let me bring this over because it came up on the other screen. I'll pick ctemp because this is a demo. And then I can give it a name like demo.shp for shapefile and click OK. And it will download those features for your county. So if you want to take these features and do something else with them in ArcMap or something you're more familiar with, you can. Cautions I would have is all of this data is embedded with CLU attributes. So be extremely careful and protective of the data. Try to keep it obviously internal. Do not upload it to Google Earth in a Chrome web browser online. Do not do that because it is sensitive data and it is protected. Questions on the GIS before I go into mobile? And just to show that that actually happened, let me connect to it here. I'm going to go to ctemp. There's a lot of stuff in here, but demo shape is this one that I just exported. And there it is. There are the exported features. So Yes, you can create shapefiles of selected features. Obviously, the more data you select, the longer it's going to take. Oh, I put it in here. It's in here twice. So just some awareness on that. So without going over the whole interface on ArcGIS Pro, you really just need the map tab to navigate around, change your base map. Randy, you were asking, can we see the slides? This is where you could add data and just go to the regular geodata folders or layer file folders and add slides. And I'm trying to remember where they are. We're in Montgomery County, right? So if I add them, I could add all years or 85 and 86. I could put them in here. Now this is probably going to prove me wrong. All the links are in here, but they're not active. But you could copy and paste them. I could just take this one, for instance, do Control C on my keyboard after highlighting it, and I can bring up any Windows Explorer and highlight the top bar and do Control V to paste it. And when I hit enter on my other screen, it is opening that file from the field office server. So that's one way you could get at that stuff, through desktop GIS. I'm going to take these out and we're going to switch to mobile. Any questions on the desktop GIS? Remember, you can download those using the regular downloader procedures that we use for all of our other GIS updates. The project's going to be, once again, in C, GIS Tools, Indiana Templates, Indiana Field Reviews, and it's this blue icon. And when you open it, it should prompt you to sign in. Again, you'll have the same access issues that you had on the web pages. So if you haven't requested access, if you haven't joined the groups yet and been given permissions by me, you're probably going to get about a bunch of red exclamation marks when you try to sign into that project. So let's talk about mobile and what we can do in mobile and with Collector, and actually demonstrate the ability to navigate to features as well. It's not quite optimize your route, like plan out 30 stops, but it at least has some level of interaction to let you do that. So if you haven't been using Collector yet, we're going to get into that, but I want to get my screen sharing going here on my phone. I'm going to share screen, and I'm going to start broadcast. I've stopped sharing on the computer, and you should see my phone now, and I believe you do. So I'm going to get out of the Teams meeting. I'll show you after this phone demo the install guides for Collector. Again, it's using the same website. And actually, I'm going to be working in field maps today, but there are a couple apps that we can use. One of them is called Collector. That's the older one. Field Maps is the one I'm showing you today. It's pretty much the same as Collector. It's just a separate app. It's a new app that's going to replace Collector. All of our Collector guides that are on the SharePoint are still valid. If you want to start using field maps, you can. Just follow the same guide, and wherever it says install Collector or open Collector, just replace it with the word field maps. We'll get a new guide up soon for field maps. No, you won't lose any templates that you have. Question from Vicky in chat. When you set up Pro, will we lose county templates that are set up in ArcGIS? No. That Pro install is totally separate. It can live alongside ArcMap. All your ArcMap stuff is still there. We haven't overwritten any folders or directories for any of the ArcMap products with anything that we're developing for Pro. And anything new that we develop for Pro is going to be called _Pro. So engineering tools still exist in ArcMap. When we release Engineering Tools Pro, the folder will be called Engineering Tools Pro, and it'll be totally separate. Same thing for everything else. Compliance tools, CRP, CPA 52 for CRTE. All of it will be called _Pro, so it'll be separate. So back to Collector and field maps. You can now take this same data mobile with you. I'm going to open field maps, but like I said, Collector is all the same. If I click this silhouette in the corner, you can see that I'm signed in again. My eAuth ID is there. That means I'm signed in right now. I'm not going to go through all the user guide stuff. We don't have time for that today. We've had some recordings of this in the past. We've had some local trainings. We're going to keep having more webinars. I talked about those pro webinars. We're going to have collector webinars as well, or field maps webinars is now more appropriate to say. So when you get in here and you're all set up and you're signed in, you get a list of the maps. And this looks a lot like, as I scroll through it, the content that you could see earlier when I was on the website and I was in the Indiana NRCS group, and you could see all those maps of content in there, seeing the same thing in here. Now in here, we really want to focus on the ones labeled mobile. So in this list somewhere, once you're in your group, you're going to find Indiana Mobile Field Review Tracking 2022. This is the same map, except it's set up for mobile. And that means I can download offline areas, which I've already done in this example. I've downloaded an offline area. So I've zoomed into a small area in this example, but case in point for what you could do, you could zoom into a quadrant in your county and say, we're going to work in the northwest part of my county today, or tomorrow when we go out, let me get ready. I'm going to download the data in the northwest part of my county. And once it's downloaded, I could rename this. I could rename this demo or whatever part of the county it is. And you can have up to, I believe, at least 15 different areas downloaded in field maps. And that's where field maps is kind of better than collector. I think collector can do it now too. Early versions of collector, you could only do one offline area at a time. Maybe the latest ones that we have let you do multiple, but field maps definitely lets you do multiple. So I'm going to open this, and we're in some corner of Hendricks County here, just the little piece that I downloaded as I pan out a little bit. But again, you could download a lot more. You could definitely download up to a county. Just give yourself 15 to 20 minutes to let that download happen. And the reason I'm downloading it is because if I go out there, I may be out of cell range. And that may have an impact on your navigation. But the same data layers are in here. If I click, I'm going to click up at the top here. You can just see it. I'm about to click a little blink on that diamond stacked pancake that's kind of between the up and down arrows and the magnifying glass. That's the layers stack. And it brings up this menu that I'm going to drag up, and you can see all the same layers are in here. All right, and I can, we're looking at the CRP tracks again right now, and I could turn on the CRP practice reviews as well. And I'm going to click this little circle X in the corner to get out of that layers view. And back on the map, we can see here's a tract with some practices on it. And again, if I tap this northern one, it's going to bring up a little menu that says, hey, there's two features here where you selected. One of them is that red thing and one of them is that orange thing. So one of them is the practice layer and one of them is the tract. So I tapped on the red one because that's the practice layer. That's the practice we want to look at. And all the information's in here again as I pan down through this. At the bottom down there, there's a little pencil in the bottom left corner that if I click that, I can again do my editing here. If I click the site visit complete box, I can change it to a yes. Color's changing already. If I click this documentation box, I can change that to a yes. Color's changed already. And then if I tap submit, it's going to save those changes. Now they're not uploaded yet because I'm offline. I would have to sync. That's a whole thing in collector. But you can do all this, while you're on the go, you can fill some of this in if you need to. In particular, the site visit part would probably be applicable while you're out in the field. All right, I'm going to cancel this because we're not going to submit this change. It's a demo. I'm going to discard this. Let's talk about navigating to all of this. So I want to go to this tract. I'm going to tap the little orange box for the tract. I could pick the practices too. It doesn't really matter. Just pick a feature. And in the bottom left corner, you can see there's a little right turn arrow inside a diamond, like a sign, like a traffic sign for right turn. And if I tap it, I get a choice of what apps are on my device that I can navigate to it with. I'm going to pick Google Maps in this case. And Google Maps is going to update with where I'm at, state office today, and a route to get to that location. And I could just start navigating to it. So as long as you're in data signal range, you can use these navigation features to navigate feature to feature to feature, next closest ones. There's a lot more that could be covered here, but we're running short on time. But this is just to demonstrate to you. And remember, I'm in Google Maps now, so I have to flip back to field maps to get back to that. This is to show you that you could take all of this mobile as well. There are many ways to work with this data. The web map is the most direct and simplest one. If you want to work with it in GIS to do some advanced things, get more reference data beyond what we included, you can do that. You can take it on the go with you on mobile. You can use it to help you navigate with mobile. Questions? All right, so I'm going to switch back to, let me stop sharing on the phone, the collector guide really quickly so you have those resources and references.
Chris, Jason Connor has a question. You mean to read it? Or do you want to read it? Can you read it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
On what device do we use collector and field maps? GPS unit, cell phone. Yep. All right. So we're talking cell phones here. We're talking our smart devices. And these mobile options with collector, at the moment, this is really only going to be accessible by INNRCS staff with a USDA issued iPad or phone, iPhone, or in a few cases, Android. A few Androids are out there that have a data plan. If you don't have a data plan, you have to be on Wi-Fi to do the download and the sync. So that's the limitation on mobile right now. We are exploring options. I do have to brief leadership team on what our options are to acquire shared devices that we could use in offices to work with our partners who are co-located with us with a device. That option, according to National, does exist. We're going to be working with our IT group leader, our new IT group leader, and the IT department to make it clear that there may be business cases where we want to deploy that kind of a solution, where we have our partners heavily involved with us in an office. And the difference in a device, a shared device that is issued, is you can't get at your email. So the way we've deployed devices in the past in Indiana is it's one device per person kind of thing. That means that that device is tied to you. You put your credit card in because you have to. You put in your information and they tie it to your Outlook email account. So like the Microsoft Access parts of it that connect to an account, they might work. I'll have to find out about that, but Outlook definitely won't. Anything that you'd probably have to sign into with your user account by default that the device might save is probably not going to work. However, a shared device can be issued, a shared password can be issued, and then when it comes to field maps, you know, there would be a situation where you would sign out a different user with that little silhouette icon, and you would sign in with your own credentials. I am not sure how to actually stop on the device, so I'm just going to try to take over. Nope, looks like I have to stop on the device.
You're no longer sharing, Chris. If that helps.
Yep. Trying again. Yep. All right. I had to just do it twice. So the user guides, same thing. Same web page, SharePoint, Tech Docs, GIS, and GPS. There's a setup guide for collector, and this is really the same for field maps. Very little is different. It's very intuitive, the similar settings. A lot of the features look the same. And this guide takes you through how to set it up. Now, on this guide, you can do all the setup steps. And again, you could replace anywhere where it says collector here with field maps, or you could do it in collector. Everything I just showed you in field maps still works in collector. So if that's what you're set up with right now, you can use that. The place where you don't need to go with this particular app is section 3.2 and later. You don't need that. This app is actually downloading imagery in this particular map, the field reviews map, from Esri. So you do not need local base maps. If you have them, that's fine. It's not going to interfere with anything. But if you want to get up and running quickly, all you've really got to do is install the apps, set up the URL, sign in, and then open the map once you refresh after you sign in. Add an offline area. Adding an offline area is as simple as clicking the menu buttons next to the map, adding an offline area. I will say I do have a recommendation in relation to downloading offline areas in this map, and that is set your detail level. You'll get a choice for detail level. Set it to street or streets. That'll keep your file size manageable. However, you can pick a different setting and it will give you a preview box on the map of how big of an area you can download at that detail. So if you want to try again, you can just back up and try a different detail level if the box is too small for what you're trying to do. But then you just zoom in, and whatever you zoom into, even if the box was bigger, if you zoom in tighter than that, it's going to download the extent that is on your screen when you tap download. That's the only extra thing I would add about downloading offline areas with this procedure. Set your detail level to street or streets. That's where I would start. And you don't need the base maps in the second half of this guide, starting with 3.2 and later, to do this map and this application. All right, so back to questions. Stephen is answering cell phone. Yep. So those are the advantages to using these apps instead of Google Earth or anything like that. Especially we're secure. We're completely secure using these apps. We are inside the enterprise. We use your eAuth credentials. VPN runs when you do the data transfers to create offline areas or sync data. If you don't create offline areas and you're in data range, you can use these apps live over, I would recommend at least 4G instead of 3G, but it'll work live as well. You don't have to do an offline area, but you do have to have cell phone coverage in that scenario. Are those concepts clear that it's one data set through a shared environment that you can work with in the web map, desktop, or mobile app? Yeah, and 3G is quickly going away, Don points out. That's true. And again, we're not required to use these apps, but I think as you change the colors on things and complete work, you can see where you've been and focus your excursions and planning for outings. And we're not saying you don't have to do it, that you can't do it another way. Just be careful if you're doing things another way. Stay secure. If you have questions, reach out to me. We'll look at it, work through it, and make sure you're staying secure and keep you protected. Because it's more about someone else finds out it's out there or discovers it because it slipped out. And then we've got OIG coming and saying, hey, this employee, we detected a release of CLU data from this IP address on this account. It looks like it was this user. We don't want any of that. We're trying to keep you out of that situation. That's why these things are created and why they exist. Partners have access to the web app and the Pro project as long as they have a USDA computer for the Pro project. They have access to the web app. I think that one's going to need a USDA computer as well. Yeah. So as long as our partner works on a USDA issued device, they have access. The most likely scenario where they don't have access is the mobile device situation because we haven't issued any mobile devices to partners. That's where I was talking about going forward as you start to see the possibilities. This is just one example of something we could do with field data collection for one isolated workflow to just track our progress. But there are other ones and there are things coming. And that's where I talked about having a shared device deployment style that I need to brief leadership team on as an option and get our group leader on board with understanding as an option. That's where we can start bringing in the SWCDs and say, okay, hey, here's the Office iPad. And in that case, it could be an iPad instead of a phone, so you have more screen real estate. Go out and collect data. You know, you just have to have an eAuth sign-in. It's a USDA device, so treat it as such, but it's shared and whoever has the sign-in can use it. And then you can use your own credentials when you're collecting data because all they really need is eAuth level 2. So right now it's the same as CD. If they can use CD in the apps, they can use this web app, this Pro project. They just can't go mobile because they probably don't have a device.
And Sarah, I'll add to that as well on the data files, the spreadsheets that we've shared. The same thing. You can share that with partners, but again, as the district conservationist and the INNRCS person responsible, you're responsible to make sure that that PII information is protected from your behalf as well as the partner. So again, our partners know all this too, so we just have to be careful with the data, but it can be shared to help everybody manage the workload and help everybody out as best we can.
Well, I hope it's helpful, and I hope that it spawns ideas for more things like this that we could do. So we want to hear your ideas. Just as a side editorial, I want to hear your ideas for things like this that you would find useful, work that you're actually doing outside of this kind of mandated work, things that you want to explore. So feel free to reach out to me, anyone with ideas. I can't guarantee we'll be able to do everything. Some things are already on a timetable. I know there's an easement monitoring app that's like this stuff that's coming that is pretty impressive from what I'm seeing of it. But there are things that we can do.
Let me make one more statement about especially the CRP maintenance or data, Chris. As you know, again, as you saw, Montgomery County has a ton of CRP work or potential site visits to complete this year. I want to stress that not every one of those tracks on the spreadsheet or CLUs on the spreadsheet, nor on Chris's GIS tool, they may not require a site visit. You know, again, follow that joint guidance that we issue. And it's just for example, an establishment status review. You know, we're looking at that 3 years after the contract started, right? And we've gone over this, that if that was a re-enrolled practice 3 years ago, and the DC and FSA locally agree that it was in good shape 3 years ago, there's no need to go make another site visit to complete the LTP 13. Just complete the LTP 13 based on your knowledge of what it was 3 years ago and move it forward. On Chris's tool, if you want to track that, that's where you would say site visit complete, yes. And again, that would change the color. So now again, as you're managing travel and coordination, you can know that, okay, we don't have to put an eye on that CLU, even if we're driving right by it. Or it's like, hey, you know, we thought it was good. You're driving right by it. Give me a quick, 55 mile an hour check on it, make sure, tell me that everything looks cool, and we'll go forward with it. So again, we've given you those flexibilities in our joint guidance to manage that workload. If you do or do not need a site visit, you can document Chris's GIS tools accordingly to say site visit complete, even if it's not needed. So hopefully that'll help you out as well.
So Jamie has a question about would it be possible to add the USDA employee tracks? And I had considered this actually, and I wanted to. But what I'm showing you right now is a screen where I can set the kinds of things that you can edit. And the key thing to notice is I've set it so that you can update attributes only. I could set it where you could add, and then add attributes in geometry would have to be selected in order to create features where you could draw a tract for the employee ones that you find and have to add. But the danger there that I discovered when I did that during tests was you could accidentally move existing features, and you could actually delete existing features, even though delete wasn't checked. So really the moving part of it was more common and was super dangerous. So I've steered away from that for now. So that's unfortunate, I guess. How many of those do we have, Shannon? I suppose it varies.
We don't know. It's all a local decision based on how long ago they've reviewed or haven't, and how many USDA employees are in the county. So yeah, we've left that at your local discretion as far as meeting the policy of checking USDA employees. So and we haven't put a deadline on when to select those tracks and that sort of thing. So all those complications, understand that Chris put a lot of time and effort into this, and it was a snapshot in time. As we've talked, farms change hands, track numbers change. Things are going to get off kilter tomorrow already. So again, coordinate with your local FSA staff, and if a tractor or CLU number or something appears goofy or offline, off kilter, coordinate with them and see what's up, and make sure we keep track of everything accordingly. But again, that's back to Chris Morse's time. We've kind of just said, hey, yeah, we're taking a snapshot so that he can have this project pretty much up and running and in your hands and helping you, and he can move on to other tasks. So but as he mentioned, in the future, if we want to have more of a timeline of selecting USDA tracks and making sure those are in the database, we could grab that at that time next year, let's say, and he could put this tool together using the most up-to-date data. But typically, as we know, every year, timelines of when we get information from headquarters and get it to you is never consistent. So, but we can keep trying. And remember too, there are some CRP practices that are not in the GIS tool that are on your spreadsheet. So again, it's going to take a little more coordinated effort, but hopefully we can find local ways to maximize those efficiencies on those as well.
Hey, Shannon, it may be possible as well. I realize now too that if you have a list of those tracks and you can send it to me, I could grab them and add them as an administrator to the tool. So I can't turn it on for users to do it because I felt it was dangerous. But if you have tracks that you want me to add, I could technically add them. And I will sound the alarm if I get swamped, but I suspect I won't. I suspect I won't get swamped.
Your call, man.
Yeah. So if you have some of those, Jamie, that you want to send me, we can add them. I think we can set a category for those, Shannon, if we need to. That's fine.
Well, they also do need added to the national database, and as I had that screenshot up, there are some already in there. But again, that's where I want to maximize Chris's time, so he's not doing this on a daily effort, and maximizing his efficiencies too. So, yeah, maybe if you keep a running list, Chris. If they let you know when they're in the national database, we could grab those and get them to you at a specific time. If that's more efficient.
I don't know if it's useful or not, but if it's useful, reach out to me and we'll see what we can do for you. Because obviously some other shoes have dropped by the time it gets to that point. But I don't have those lists, is why they're not in there right now.
All right, great. Any other questions? Can you raise your hand?
Did we record?
Yes. This is recorded, yes.
Good.
Any other questions for Chris? All right, well, seeing none, we will get you back to your day. And Chris, many thanks. This is going to really help everybody out and help manage these two critical programs and workloads that we have facing us. As you heard Chris offer, if you come across any questions or wrinkles or whatever, let him know. Let me know on any questions you have on the CRP processes and data, and we will do our best to get you some good answers for you. Okay. Well, hey, we appreciate all that you all do. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing all the great conservation you get accomplished this year. Thanks a ton, everybody.